Okay, so in the assignments so far in the exercise, health and lifestyle units, you've learnt about the kind of lifestyle factors that might affect somebody's health and well-being in assignment 1. In assignment 2, you gathered information from a client and evaluated their lifestyle, so you kind of know what their strengths and what their weaknesses are. And now assignment 3 brings you on to actually use that information again to suggest and recommend some strategies to improve those areas in their lifestyle that need improving. The unit spec here, if you have a look, you need to be able to provide advice on lifestyle improvement, and there's a long list of strategies here which include those category of lifestyle factors, so physical activity, alcohol, smoking, stress, diet and behaviour changes. So you need to do a good bit of research on each of these strategies and be able to explain and analyse the ones that are most appropriate to your client. So the assessment criteria here, again, we've got pass, merit and distinction, and as you know, these are going to require different levels of information and skill from you. So P3 is providing lifestyle improvement strategies for an individual, so telling them about some strategies at a much more descriptive level. If you can explain those recommendations you've made, so give more reasoning to why you're recommending them, that's merit. And then for distinction, this analyse word means you've got to look at those strategies and see if they've got any advantages, as we assume they have, but also see if there are any disadvantages to them, any reasons why they might be flawed or have difficulty or not work out for a particular kind of client. So look more critically at those lifestyle strategies. So, your scenario for this assignment: you have gathered all the relevant information regarding your client's physical activity, nutritional and lifestyle factors. You must now research available strategies to reduce or improve these lifestyle factors. And this assignment is broken down into 2 tasks. Task 1 encompasses your pass and merit. You're going to produce an informational leaflet. You might want to use Publisher or Word or PowerPoint. It doesn't really matter too much what medium you use. But you're going to produce a leaflet which will describe and explain the strategies that you are recommending to improve your client's lifestyle. So it's the sort of thing that they might take away to help them understand what they've got to do. The second task then, as we said earlier, requires you to analyse each of the strategies, and you're going to write a more formal report to the client's doctor, telling the doctor what you've recommended for the client, but in a much more critical way. The reason you've done it is to gain these advantages. However, you're aware that there might be some disadvantages, or there might be some side effects, or your client might have some difficulty sticking with one of the strategies. So you're kind of looking for strengths and weaknesses, advantages, disadvantages in this analytical task, and in a much more formal report writing style. So let's quickly skip through the lifestyle factors and try to just check out some possible strategies, although of course you'll do this in much more detail in lesson. So physical activity. Ultimately, you kind of want your client to do anything that makes them physically active. So if you understand what physical activity is, that makes sense. In fact, physical activity is actually and this is an umbrella term. Physical activity means anything that raises your heart rate. So there's quite a range of types of activities that we might include. So they might do some what we call physical recreation, some outdoor recreation. They may, if they're young enough, be part of physical education at school. They might choose to do some outdoor education, or they might play regular sport, or they might do things which are a bit more health and fitness orientated, like going to the gym and do classes. So physical recreation could be walking the dog, it could be gardening. It's done for enjoyment, for fun, but it does raise heart rate. Outdoor recreation is the same, but in a more natural setting, so you might go hiking. Obviously the educational things, this might be learning to kayak in a class, or all the activities you do as part of PE. Sport is much more organised and formalised, so matches, fixtures, competition. And as I said, health and fitness might be gym classes or weight training or something like that. So you essentially want strategies that will get your client to do something under this big umbrella term of physical activity. It could be that you think about physical activity strategies in terms of them being functional. So can they build anything into their daily life? Can they think about sitting up properly and engaging their core muscles? Can they choose to use the stairs or not the escalators? Maybe give them a pedometer, or recommend they buy one and just start getting motivated by the number of steps they're taking. Cycle to work versus the car if it's possible, or obviously additional leisure activities, and get all those social benefits that might come along with physical activity, because we know it's not just about the physicality. So think about the broad lifestyle, what they do in their leisure time, what they do in their working life, what they do getting to work, that kind of broad approach. You need to research strategies for reducing or controlling alcohol consumption, and there are obviously some important organisations, should it be that extreme or a real sort of significant concern. Counselling strategies, therapy, self-help groups. If you're amongst like-minded people, it's often better and easier to understand some of the issues or some of the reasons. There are various treatments. A lot of homeopathic things might also be appropriate, or hypnosis. There are drugs, but again, obviously there could be pros and cons to using medication, or going on the detox. So alcohol consumption, a lot of strategies that you need to look into. Similarly, quit smoking is not perhaps as easy as some of us non-smokers might think. So you need to look at both the physical and the psychological factors associated with being addicted, because extreme smokers are essentially addicted to these. Why do they smoke? Is it the social thing? Is it they do it at certain times? Are there any therapies that can be used? Acupuncture again. What can be done to break these habits? And even looking on the NHS helpline or speaking to somebody could be really helpful in you learning about some strategies. Stress, as I said, often very subtle but incredibly dangerous and powerful in terms of its effect on your emotion and physical self. So there are a range of strategies that you can research to enable you to either reduce or manage your stress, hopefully not get stressed in the first place, but if you are, strategies that can help you reduce your stress. So check some of those out. Nutrition and diet. So isn't this all these different diets that have been big news at one stage or another? So look into some of the pitfalls of discussing with clients about dieting or changing their diets. A lot of negative connotations about dieting, but again, look at their habits. When do they eat? Why do they eat? Can they cook? Do they know how to cook? Or do they rely on processed ready foods? Is expense a factor? Buying fruit can often be much more expensive than having a bag of sweets. So portion size, yes, I eat healthy food, but I eat 3 times as much as I actually need. So lots of things to be mindful of in terms of nutritional strategies. Moving on to behaviour and attitude change. So sometimes knowing what's good or bad or right or wrong isn't enough, and there's a lot of psychology involved in actually changing your behaviour or changing your attitude. So those of you, if you've done the psychology unit yet, you may or may not, then you'll know about the trans-theoretical model of behaviour change. So we need to check that one out. And also things like cognitive behavioural therapy, a very powerful tool that a lot of counsellors and psychotherapists use to try to help people change their behaviour, whether it's to do with exercising more or smoking or drinking less. This CBT therapy is very well known and well valued. And lastly, don't forget, in terms of your analysis of your client, the report you're going to write to their doctor, and also in you picking your strategies, don't forget that there might be built-in barriers to their lifestyle. If, for example, money is an issue, then that could very much be a barrier to buying healthy food to some degree, or gym membership or things like that. But it's really important that you remember the OPE, opportunities, provision, esteem, and perhaps sometimes it's more esteem and psychology that gets in people's ways rather than having things on hand, because at the end of the day you can go walking around the block, which is free. So it's a very broad approach that's needed when you're thinking about the most appropriate strategies or what might be your client's barriers. So we need to make sure that they've got support, make sure they've got the knowledge, and make sure hopefully that they have the right attitude. So just to remind you then, Pass and Merit comes within the explanatory informational leaflet that you're going to provide your client with the strategies explained that you're recommending for them. And then the distinction is a formalised analytical report to the doctor of your client discussing the merits and downfalls of the strategies that you're going to do with them. Just to quickly show you again, so this is the assignment brief, assignment 3, lifestyle improvement strategies, and all the information that I've mentioned on the video so far. 2 tasks, the leaflet and the report to the doctor, and here's where you can put your information. So depending on what mode that you use, if you do your leaflet in Word, just insert it here. You may or may not be able to, perhaps you can screen print from Publisher and insert it in here if you make it on Publisher or in PowerPoint, and then write your report in here. So ideally everything will be in one document here.